Today's lesson is From Tiny Tot to Football Legend, Lionel Messi's Journey to Greatness. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're going to continue talking about the sport of football, or soccer if you're an American. And, of course, one of the greatest football players in the world is Lionel Messi. And maybe you hadn't heard about him before, but if you watched the World Cup last year, you will know that he was kind of the star of that competition. So now he's probably considered the greatest soccer player or greatest football player who's ever lived.
Yes, he helped Argentina win the World Cup last year, and he also had a rough beginning. He had some health issues. He wasn't growing properly, and his family couldn't afford to give him the medical treatment that he needed. But then the Spanish team, Barcelona, stepped in, or representatives of Barcelona, and decided to take a bet or make a bet on him, on his future, and financially took the responsibility of making him a better person.
Right, okay, so we talked about his childhood and how he was spotted by scouts from Barcelona, and the rest is history, and we'll continue talking about Lionel Messi in today's lesson, so let's keep on talking about him. Let's listen to the first part of today's lesson right now.
After just 6 months with Barcelona, however, Messi faced a difficult dilemma. His mother and brothers, who had moved with him to Spain, wished to return to Argentina. Should he go back home with his family, or stay in Spain with his father, splitting the family in two? In the end, Messi decided to stay, and though the decision weighed heavily on him, it also made him more determined than ever to make good on his footballing potential.
大家好。第一部分我们可以看到名词 dilemma， 它的意思是进退两难的困境或是左右为难。例如 I'm having a dilemma over which movie to watch tonight. 我正在为今晚要看哪部电影而左右为难。又或者说 Katie was faced with a real dilemma over whether to take up the job offer from the rival firm. Katie 面临着两难，她不知道是否该接受竞争公司所提供的工作机会。再来我们介绍动词 split， 它指的是使分开或是使裂开，也可以是使分裂或是分配。例如 The search team split into small groups to look for the missing hiker. 搜索队分成小组寻找那名失踪的登山者。或者 After the war, that country was split into two parts. 在战争之后，那个国家被划分为两个部分。再举一个例子 Mark and Tracy split the profits from their bake sale. Mark 和 Tracy 分配他们卖蛋糕的利润。接下来我们看到片语 weigh on somebody 或是 something， 它的意思是问题或是责任等使点点点感到有负担或是焦虑不安。举例来说 The upcoming math exam is weighing on Polly's mind. 即将到来的数学考试让 Polly 的心理压力很大。又或者说 Ben's poor performance in school began to weigh on his mother.Ben 在学校的表现不佳，开始让他妈妈很担心。再来介绍一个片语 make good on something， 它的意思是实现或是履行点点点。例如 I was impressed with the speed at which Tom made good on his promise to pay me back. 我对于 Tom 实现诺言还我钱的速度感到印象深刻。又或者说The boss made good on his promise to invest millions in artificial intelligence by year's end.老板实现他在年底前会投资人工智慧数百万元的承诺。
So Messi signed with Barcelona, and after just 6 months with Barcelona, however, Messi faced a difficult dilemma. So he was with Barcelona for only 6 months, which means he had to move to Barcelona, Spain. But after only 6 months of being there, he was faced with a difficult dilemma, or he faced a difficult dilemma. Now, a dilemma is a situation in which you have to make a difficult decision. And dilemma could be used to talk about different choices that you have to make in life. For example, if somebody offers you a job, but this job is far away from your home and you have to leave your family, your dilemma could be, do I take this job, which would offer me a lot of money and career possibilities, or do I not take it and stay with my family, be with my loved ones? So that's a dilemma, and it involves you having to make a choice.
Right, so of course they moved from Argentina to Spain. Hey, they grew up in Argentina. They were used to living there, and they just wanted to go home. They were homesick. And so, of course, the family wanted to go back, and Lionel thought, gee, I could stay here in Barcelona and become a soccer star, but I'm going to miss my family. So, indeed, that's a dilemma. It's very difficult to decide what to do in this situation. Should he go back home with his family or stay in Spain with his father, splitting the family in two? So his father was going to remain in Spain with Lionel, but the rest of the family was going to move back to Argentina. So here we've got the verb to split, which means to separate something into two or more parts. For example, if you want to have wood to burn in your fireplace, you might use an axe to split wood.
Yes, and you can also use the word split or split up to talk about a couple, a married couple or boyfriend-girlfriend or unmarried couple. When they leave each other, you can say that the couple split or they split up, which means they are no longer together. You can also say, I split my time between Taipei and Tainan, which means I spent part of my time in Taipei and part of my time in Tainan.
Yeah, you go down to Tainan if it rains too much in Taipei, or if it gets too hot in Tainan, you can come up to Taipei. So yes, indeed, you split your time between those two cities. And yeah, his dilemma was whether or not he wanted to split the family in two. And in the end, or finally, Messi decided to stay. And though the decision weighed heavily on him, it also made him more determined than ever to make good on his footballing potential. So in the end, he made a decision, and he decided to stay in Spain and play football for Barcelona, sometimes shortened to Barca. And he decided to stay there and play with that team. Who wouldn't? Because they always win La Liga. They always are number one. So you could be a big star if you played there. But still, this decision weighed heavily on him. If something weighs heavily on you, you think about it all the time and it bothers you, and you keep wondering, was that the right decision or did I make a mistake?
Right. So this decision to stay in Barcelona weighed on him. It worried him because he was probably thinking, well, my family is split up now. How's my mother, my siblings? How are they doing back in Argentina? He misses them, and so on. So it was a very heavy decision that weighed on him. And this decision, however, the fact that he decided to split up his family also made him more determined than ever to make good on his footballing potential. When you make good on something, it usually means that you will keep your promise to do something, or you are determined to do something that you thought you have decided that you're going to do, or that you have told others that you're going to do. For instance, if you make a promise to somebody, then you have to be sure that you will make good on this promise, that you will keep your promise.
Indeed, and again, he wanted to make good on his footballing potential. In other words, he knew that he had potential. He knew that he had the possibility of being great in the future. That's what potential means, to have something good that's going to happen to you in the future. Something successful will happen to you in the future. And he wanted to make good on this. He did have that potential. If he kept on playing and worked hard, he was probably going to be one of the best football players in the world. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's continue with the second part.
Over the next 2 decades, Messi helped Barcelona win trophy after trophy, becoming a global football idol in the process. Nonetheless, his repeated failures during that time to lead Argentina's national team to a World Cup victory caused many fans to compare him unfavorably to Diego Maradona, another Argentinian great who powered the team to World Cup glory in 1986. And yet finally, with last year's spectacular World Cup win now under his belt, Messi has silenced even his most stubborn critics.
第二部分我们看到单字 nonetheless， 它是副词，指的是然而、不过或是尽管如此。例如 The steak was a little undercooked, but it was excellent nonetheless. 尽管牛排有点没煮熟，但仍然很棒。或是 It's raining pretty heavily outside. Nonetheless, we should still go to the party. 尽管外面下着很大的雨，我们还是应该去派对。最后我们看到形容词 spectacular， 它的意思是惊人的或是令人惊叹的、壮观的。例如 You can get some spectacular views from the top of the mountain. 你可以在山顶上看到一些壮丽的景观。或是 Taipei always has a spectacular fireworks display on New Year's Eve. 台北总是会在跨年夜举行壮观的烟火秀。最后一个句子 Venice is home to many spectacular architectural wonders. 威尼斯有许多令人惊叹的建筑奇景。
So Messi is playing with Barcelona, and over the next 2 decades, Messi helped Barcelona win trophy after trophy, becoming a global football idol in the process. So he's had a long history with Barcelona, having played for 20 years with this team, and during this long period, he helped the team win one trophy after another, a series of trophies, or you could say trophy after trophy. Now, a trophy is something that you get. It's usually in the form of a large metal cup or something similar to that, and you usually get it as a prize for winning a competition. And this competition is usually a sporting event. So I could say, for instance, after the tennis match, the winner was awarded a silver trophy.
Right, and of course, sometimes that can be referred to as a cup, like in the NHL, the National Hockey League of North America, and of course, Barcelona won La Liga many times, probably the Champions League as well, so they won trophy after trophy, and they became, or at least he became, a global football idol in the process. So people knew about him, and of course, lots of people screamed when they saw him because they were big fans. He was a football idol.
Yep, but nonetheless, his repeated failures during that time to lead Argentina's national team to a World Cup victory caused many fans to compare him unfavorably to Diego Maradona, another Argentinian great who powered the team to World Cup glory in 1986. So nonetheless, or despite the fact that he had done so well for his team, he still repeatedly failed during these 20 years to bring Argentina to World Cup victory. So there were still some shortcomings, still some things that he didn't do enough of for his team. And this caused many fans to compare him unfavorably or negatively to Diego Maradona. Diego Maradona, as we had mentioned several times during this lesson, was another Argentinian great who was able to bring Argentina to World Cup victory. So Maradona was a football player for Argentina who is no longer with us.
Yeah, he's known as the guy who got a goal by using his hand, but he wasn't caught. But that's one of his features. Otherwise, he was a great player. And lots of people think he's the greatest from Argentina. So, of course, when Messi was not helping Argentina to win the World Cup, they kind of thought, well, you know, he's good, but he's no Diego Maradona. Okay, he's just not as good as Maradona, so he was compared unfavorably to Diego Maradona. If something's unfavorable, it just means it's not in your advantage. It shows you have a lack of performance. You're not doing as well as another person, so they just thought, hey, he's just not as good as Diego Maradona.
That's right. And yet, finally, with last year's spectacular World Cup win now under his belt, Messi has silenced even his most stubborn critics. So finally, last year, he was able to bring his team to victory at the World Cup, and that victory was spectacular, which means that it was extremely impressive. It was very exciting and people were very impressed by it. And he has done this, so now it's considered to be under his belt. When something is under your belt, it means you have achieved it, you've done it, and you can move on to the next great thing.
Yep, he's got this under his belt. He can say that he's done this. And, of course, that silenced even his most stubborn critics. You think I'm not as good as Maradona? Well, now I am. And, of course, I helped Argentina win international fame by winning the World Cup in 2022. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third and final part.
From a small boy with a growth problem to a colossus of the world's most popular sport, it's been a remarkable journey for Messi. And when it comes to the question of who is the greatest footballer of all time, Lionel Messi, at long last, has nothing left to prove.
So now we're concluding our talk on Messi, and we've seen that he has surpassed many different obstacles, physical obstacles, and also some problems with his family. So he's had a long journey. Now, from a small boy with a growth problem to a colossus of the world's most popular sport, it's been a remarkable journey for Messi.
Right. A colossus, of course, is technically a very large statue, but of course, colossus in this sense here just means somebody who's really big. They're larger in life. They're very famous. And of course, he has become the most famous soccer player in the world, or the most famous football player in the world, probably after Pele. Pele did die last year. I'm not sure if Lionel would say he's as good as Pele, but of course we need new heroes in the modern era, and lots of people just love Lionel Messi. He is a colossus of the world's most popular sport, which is football. It's been a remarkable journey for Messi. If something's remarkable, it deserves to be talked about because it is so significant, it's so great that we just have to say something about it. It's noticeable.
Yes, and when it comes to the question of who is the greatest footballer of all time, Lionel Messi, at long last, has nothing left to prove. So we mentioned before that before he was able to bring his team to World Cup glory, some fans criticized him, compared him negatively to Maradona. But now that he has helped his team win the World Cup at long last, meaning after a long wait, he has nothing left to prove. He doesn't need to show anybody anything anymore.
Right. So in this sentence, we've got the phrase, when it comes to. We use this to refer to a particular aspect of a subject. If we're talking about who the best player in the world is, when it comes to that question, if we're going to talk about that question of who is the greatest footballer of all time, then we're going to think of Lionel Messi. He, at long last, has nothing left to prove. So at long last means finally, basically. So, of course, he had struggles as a boy. He wasn't very tall. He probably got made fun of by his classmates, even though they probably recognized his excellent skills on the soccer pitch. But of course, in soccer or in football, you need to be fairly tall. You don't need to be as tall as LeBron James or something like that. But, you know, you can't be too short either. And so he needed to grow. And fortunately, Barcelona was able to finance his hormone treatments. And now he's one of the world's greatest football players of all time. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to turn things over to Hanny, who I believe is actually a soccer fan.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到，然而效力巴塞隆纳仅仅6个月后，梅西就面临了一个艰难的困境。文中是用 faced a difficult dilemma 来表达面临了一个艰难的困境。好，那么 face 当动词就有面临、面对的意思，像是面临困难啊、面临挑战等等。那当我们在表达某人面对困难的事情时，可以用主动用法Somebody faces something 来强调说某人迎接、面对并处理某事，这就带有主动啊、正面迎击的语义。或者是我们可以用被动用法 Somebody be faced with something 来强调说可能是在无奈、不情愿、被动的情况下面临或遭遇了某个困境。那我们来看2个例句。The team is faced with a new challenge. 意思是说那个团队遭遇到一个新的挑战。那这边就是用被动用法 They aren't ready to face the challenge. 他们还没准备好面临挑战。那这边我们用 to face the challenge 就是主动用法。好，那这边也补充2个跟 face 有关的用法。一个是 face the music， 这是指说为自己说过的话或做过的事承担后果，面对现实情况做好可能遭受批评或处罚的准备。那第2个补充的用法是 face it，或者是 let's face it， 就是说正视事实吧。那这个惯用语呢，是用来带出某一件令人不悦或是不太想承认的事实，你就可以用来表达说面对现实吧，实话实说吧。像是 let's face it，We don't have any chance to win. 面对现实吧，我们没有任何赢的机会。好，再来接着读到课文最后一句。而说到谁是有史以来最伟大的足球运动员这个问题时，梅西再也无需多加证明。文中是用到 when it comes to the question 来表达说到这个问题那么 when it comes to 就是可以表达提到什么，就什么而论，谈到什么什么。那这个片语通常用来引导一个话题，带出跟主题相关的资讯，其中的 to 是介系词，所以后面必须接名词或动名词。那么我们用 when it comes to 加上名词或动名词，这部分呢，你可以把它摆在句中或是摆在句首。好，我们来造2个例句。When it comes to music, Ryan seems to know everything. 讲到音乐 Ryan 似乎什么都懂，你问他准没错。好，那么 It's important to know your limit when it comes to swimming， 意思就是说到游泳啊，知道自己极限在哪里是很重要的。好，那我们再补充一下 Speaking of 这个片语介系词呢，则是用来引出跟前文相关的其他话题，表示说到提到那么后面是接名词或动名词。我们来看这个情境，假设跟朋友刚好聊到旅行，那你想要延续这个话题，顺便问问朋友说有没有什么计划啊？这时候就可以说 Speaking of traveling, do you have any vacation plans for this summer? 说到旅行，那你这个夏天有任何度假的计划吗？好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Dilemma.The choice between getting a job or continuing his studies presented Mark with a dilemma. Split. The carpenter split the piece of wood in two with an axe. Potential. Evelyn's teachers say she has the potential to become a great scientist. Trophy. Lewis put his trophy for most valuable player on a shelf. Spectacular. The dancer's spectacular performance had the audience cheering. Critic.The president's critic said his speech lacked specific ideas for addressing major challenges. Remarkable. The author's remarkable new novel received considerable praise.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Okay, now it's time for our discussion starter for today. And the question is, which characteristics do you think a player should possess to be regarded as the greatest player?
Well, to be regarded as the greatest player, I think a player should possess consistency. So a player can't be remarkable, spectacular for just one season, for just a few years, and then kind of go out like a flame, because that means that this player's career hasn't been very long. To be the greatest player of all time, you need to have a kind of a long career. And I think another quality that the greatest player should possess is humility, because one problem is that once you become famous, then companies will come to you to do commercials, sporting goods, tennis shoes, and all of that. And it can all go to your head, because now you're no longer just an athlete, you're a star and people want to be seen with you. And that could make you kind of lose your way, and you stop training, you stop practicing, and pretty soon you're not even a good player anymore.
Well, my answer to this question is similar to yours, Helen, in terms of humility. I think one characteristic that the greatest player should possess is a sense of teamwork, okay? We, of course, love the players who score a lot, but soccer is a team sport, or football is a team sport, and you have to slowly move the ball up the pitch, and you can't make mistakes, so you have to do a lot of passing, and you have to look for opportunities to shoot the ball at the net. So again, that takes a lot of teamwork, and of course, you shouldn't be concentrating too much on being the star. You need to work with other players.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.